Hello, everybody. This week, I wanted to give a mini lecture on the top five logistics regulatory concerns that we're looking at kind of in 2021, 2022. I know 2021 is about over. Um, but when we start to look at, transportation logistics, it's been very volatile the past few years. We've seen a wide range of impacts from new technology, the fluctuating economic climates, and this has really impacted how carriers are doing business. 2019, there's a lot of regulatory concerns that were really kind of staged to create just tons of ripple effects um, in 2020, be it for better or worse, depending on what side of the argument you're on. When we look at the past decade, the logistics world really, was facing down the struggle of the trucking crisis, not having enough truck drivers, not having enough trucking fuel prices. Um, there was concerns about supply chain transparency, tariffs, environmental concerns. As we started seeing more business to consumer relationships, the reverse logistics has become a bigger piece of it. We've seen warehouse and inventory management, the outsourcing of that. We've seen an increasing number of accidents, and the corresponding insurance rates. So really, while this is a fascinating time to be in supply chain and logistics, it's also been a very difficult time to manage your logistics. So when we look at fuel prices, fuel prices might very well continue to increase. This could be, a side impact of the oil industry. It could be due to the International Maritime Organization. The IMO implemented and enforced some new fuel regulation for the shipping industry. Shipping is always seen as the lowest cost way to transport. However, there's been some challenges to this, to the way that these ships use fuel and the amount of sulfur that goes into it. So when we start to look at that, I think that the IMO wants to reduce the sulfur content in the fuel that maritime vessels uses from 2.5 to 0.5%. Sulfur, in part, gives this maritime fuel some of its potency, some of its strength. So there's this goal to reduce our sulfur emissions. And that has, while it does give the boat, it does give the maritime vessel power, it also causes air pollution and many health problems. So I think the IMO really wants to look at their image and try to promote this cleaner air image. Although it still is a smaller carbon footprint than air freight. So, there might also be some freight changes or some fuel concerns when it comes to trucking and landbound freight. These companies already use low sulfur diesel. However, there's a low supply of low sulfur diesel. So if the ocean freight industry starts using it, then we're going to see a raise in prices for our trucks even more so than we already have. So, you may see some changes in hours of service regulations for truck drivers. So many do not realize that commercial truck drivers can only drive a max of so many hours a day. So they're required to take a 30-minute break after 8 hours on duty, and they're supposed to have 10 hours off duty in their sleeper trucks. So if you look at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association is looking at tightening these restrictions on truck drivers. If they start to do that, then all of a sudden your per mileage rate could go up. You could have an even sharper shortage of truckers because truckers are not able to do as much. In theory, if you see a reduction in their hours they're able to work by 10%, then realistically that's 1 month a year less that the truckers are not driving. As we as we're starting to have this driver shortage be more and more prevalent, um, concurrently at the same time, we're seeing a higher and higher increase on safety and monitoring the industry. So we're seeing the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse program, which is really put forth by the Federal Motor Safety Administration, Motor Carrier Administration. It's really cutting some of the drug and alcohol use within drivers. However, we already have a massive driver shortage, and this is only going to increase that shortage. So it's likely that we're going to see the companies fighting for their labor, and we're going to see the compensation and the benefits package go way much of an increase for the drivers. So good for the drivers, not so good for those of us that work in logistics. We're also going to look at seeing possible insurance rates increase. So these are still in effect; they're still rising. Insurance carriers have still been rising the past few years, and a lot of this is because we've had such a uptick in total loss claims, and these claims that are we're often claiming not just the lost cargo but the lost potential of revenue. So these insurance rates. So when you look at that. Incoterms, who takes ownership where, who pays the insurance, it becomes an even bigger negotiating chip. Could there be some changes in the tariff agreement? So we know, the last presidential administration was really tough on China, and that caused a lot of issues. As we start to be more lenient with China, are we going to start to see more tariffs from other places? Are we going to see tariffs on our goods? So when you think about logistics, you might not think you really have to pay attention to the political climate, but you really do, because the way that these tariffs work really do affect us in what we do. So, I really just thought that might be kind of, an interesting thing to kind of give you guys a short lecture on this week, because we do, some of our topics this week are environmental and regulatory impacts on the logistics industries. So there we go back to the fuel. Safety regulations on the transportation and logistics. So a little bit about the drug testing and the driver hours, and then the economic regulations, looking at some of these tariffs and how the geopolitical landscape is going to play into what we do. So, it's a difficult time to be in supply chain logistics, but it's also a fascinating time. We're learning a lot. There's going to be a lot of good academic material, a lot of good case studies that come out of this. So, thank you for listening. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, please feel free to let me know, and we can chat about it.